One! This means she can go with Tia though. But you don't have any cooldown. But then you can now set up Crown Naga with, and then Tia Zwei, and then like a cooldown reduction. Still waiting on that burst 2 cooldown reduction. That's good apparently, I guess. This will also work with Snow White because her Snow White's burst. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Neon was together with Snow White also, because of the first shot. I think we're just basically a few moments away to greatness just by having them provide like a really good burst 2 unit. That's really what we're missing, a good burst 2 CDR. Activates when entering full burst effects allies. Critical rate only 5 seconds. So it's weird because they should have just made it 10 seconds. This would have been good for Snow White. Technically you can release Snow White burst within 5 seconds. But not having any attack buff is, I guess this would be good for Snow White. But yeah, Miranda's buff though is like 55 attack and then crit damage. So like technically the real Snow White Fishers would probably still use Miranda. Well, to be fair, most Snow White teams doesn't have any damage increase, attack increase, and most use Dala as the cooldown reduction. So this would actually be good for Snow White. But the pierce damage is basically, if we're going by Red Hood and Alice, for example, then it's a 25% pierce damage buff. You're not gonna take advantage of the crit rate as much on Snow White because most of the time, like, the Snow White strat with Yulha is like they wait. The thing is, like, if they made this 7 seconds, maybe it would have been okay. 5 seconds is just kind of iffy because most Snow Whites kind of just like sometimes like they even burst early so that they, the cooldown reduction is a lot earlier. It's really just really weird. I mean, Snow White can work with this crit rate, but yeah, kind of weird because it's entering full burst also. So 25% pierce damage, because if you consider it, like, if it's a Yulha team, with Yulha has insane attack buff already, 90%, and Miranda has 55, and then there's crit damage buff also technically with Miranda. He seems promising though. Here's one good thing that I can tell about Zwei. She doesn't have any scaling based on like caster's attack or whatever. That's a good thing about like doing like pierce damage buff or attack damage instead of attack percentage buff. It's not in the shift ups formula of, oh, you need multiple copies. So this one is like a single copy. And also another thing is, yeah, there's no, yeah, other than her burst, there's nothing really about her that's like huge damage. So she's really actually a support. It's not like a Summer Anise where it's like a high DPS, high support. No, this is just support. This is just support with pierce damage. And this is like a Snow White team right now. I really see it as a Snow White like buffer. So who else has pierce really, right? Like it would be Alice, and then it would be Red Hood. Those are the main pierce damage dealers. There's others, right, like Haran or whatever, but who cares, right, about them? So this is the biggest pierce damage users are Alice, Red Hood, Maxwell. So this one, I guess, like the crit rate will help Maxwell, but here's the thing: for a lot of the crit fishers, for like Snow White or like Maxwell crit fishing, it's not that they want crit rate. They want, I mean, crit rate is great. They make them moldless, Crit damage is really the main thing for the ones that really min maxes this. So the only thing I could really think of is if somehow there's like a good burst to cooldown reduction, and in particular the burst to cooldown reduction that we're looking for is probably damage taken increase. So like Novel, Blanc, Summer, Rosanna. Another is, I guess, like a huge attack buffer, right? Because again, this is like just trying to offset, ignoring the 20% or one shot buff. She basically has 25% pierce damage, which is like in the same, should be in the same category as the attack damage buff. So if you say compare her to Crown, Crown has attack percentage buff, and then on top of it she has attack damage buff. Now this one is only basically in the attack damage category buff slash pierce damage category, so it's just in the damage increase category buff. So does it warrant not having a cooldown reduction? No. And then like you're comparing with Litter and the Killer Wife, which has cooldown reduction on their own. This is very underwhelming. The only main thing that I could really think of is like she ends up being a synergy with Tia, because Tia needs these cover recovery, and so you can put in Crown with Naga now a lot more confidently, and then now you can put her Zwei with Tia without feeling too much it sucks, right? The downside is, I guess, like Tia gives attack damage and then this gives pierce damage, so it's like they're stacking too much attack on the damage increase category. And then like the another question is the burst to cooldown reduction. So what I'm really thinking is Shift Up is prepping us up for a really good burst to cooldown reduction unit. That's the main thing I could really think of. Yeah, I don't even know how this team is really gonna fit with the this current solar raid. I think we might be okay. Yeah, this is actually not gonna make any difference on the solar raid, because the way we're using pierce damage in this solar raid is not really at all. If we have to be honest. Yeah, this is a one copy unit for people that are coping that somehow she will start working with somehow, but for most people feels like she's an easy skip, at the very least with the units that are out right now, because the main one that would, I would say, meta pierce damage right now is Red Hood, and it's hard to justify moving Red Hood out of the Killer Wife. And see, I have a hard time like thinking if the Snow White users will use her over Miranda. And I mean, I guess it is possible. I could see it. For Snow White one shot, once she run the risk of shooting breaking parts instead of saving it for Snow White. Well, it depends on the part. Some parts are tanky, right? And so she might be able to do a pierce where it does like some minimal, like tiny bit of damage, and then Snow White can finish it off for an over damage. So there's that possibility. And also the charge time is only 1.5 seconds, so she's gonna be shooting it way earlier before Snow White does. And then the alternative also is like to just press hold on everyone else to not shoot. But I think for how people would probably use hers is that this is a quick shot of like that 1.5 seconds immediately, just shoot it on the boss body and then let Snow White do her thing. And here's the other team combination that you might not have thought of. See, the thing is, like, actually, Mr. Kanto and I have been thinking about this for one of the possible, one of the previous solo reads, I think, where Tia will buff Snow White. So this is a possible team comp now, with Yulha buffing the attack category and then Tia buffing the attack damage, and then Zwei. I mean, it doesn't matter though, I guess, at the end, because Tia doesn't have to burst every single time, so technically she wasn't even Zwei wasn't even necessary to begin with, to be fair, if I have to be honest. Like, technically this was fine also, because at the end of the day all you have to have was Tia's buff with Snow White's. Yeah, actually, with Zwei, this might be more possible with Maxwell instead, and then this way you have 2 DPS. I could see this actually, and that technically it does benefit both. I could see this in, like, in Iron. So in Iron, actually, there now it starts making sense now. In Iron Advantage, because Maxwell, it's getting really, Iron is getting very crowded, right? And it's gonna be difficult to just, like, constantly put in Maxwell in, like, other team comps. So I could see this happening where Zwei is in there, which is funny that they made her electric. Then it's like they made us think that she would be relevant, and there's some good synergy with this, because you have damage taken increase, and then attack buff and charge speed buff, technically attack damage buff, and then pierce damage buff with Zwei. And that pierce damage buff is additive, should be additive to the attack damage buff that Tia provides though. But I can see the double carry Snow White a bit more. But yeah, that's the thing. I do think that a lot of people are not gonna be able to properly use her, especially these one shots. So unless this is a prelude for them to slowly release another unit with pierce damage one shot bursts. So there's that thing. So you guys just have to watch out for that, I guess. Just like how mass is a prelude for 2BXDD. And then just like how 2B is a prelude for the future more HP related units, right? Wait a minute.